Hey y'all, I'm Kirstin and I'm excited to get to be doing a flow and yin class with you today. It'll be about an hour long. We'll do some flow first and then we'll move into some longer holds with some yin poses. As always, this is your practice, and so move through it in a way that feels okay for your body today. If there's anything that I invite you into that doesn't feel good, that brings pain, that sharp, either pain, tingling, numbness, any of that, that's not good. Good cue from your body to back off a little bit. If there are modifications that you know work best for you, please do those. I'll try to offer some modification in a lot of the poses, but again, you know your body better than anyone else, so just pay attention to it as we move through this practice. It probably would be helpful to have a towel or a blanket of some sort. We'll use those for some support in a couple of poses. If you have a bolster, a yoga bolster, or even just a hard cushion or a pillow, please feel free to grab that. You don't need it, but if you may find it helpful in some of the poses. So if you have it, certainly use it. Let's see. I think that's about it before we get going. We'll start in easy pose. I like to have a towel folded up behind or underneath my hips as we come into easy pose, because I find that makes easy pose a little easier for me. So if you like that as well, as you sit on that towel or blanket, just make sure that the sit bones are kind of at the edge of that blanket. So what we want is the pelvis just encouraged to come forward just a little bit so we're not rounding in the lower back. And it also makes it a little easier for the knees to come down a little lower than the hips. So just coming into that comfortable seated pose, beginning by taking a few breaths. Let's inhale deeply and then exhale fully. And again, inhaling and sighing it out. And now turning your attention more to your breath, but not forcing it, bringing palms face down on your knees or your thighs. Either closing your eyes or just letting your gaze become soft. Beginning to notice your breath. Not trying to change it or force it in any way, but just watching it. Seeing how it moves in and out. Noticing if it stays up in the top of your chest, or if it moves your belly in and out. Maybe you feel your ribs expand to the side or to the back. Bringing some intentionality now to the breath. Beginning to even out your inhale and exhale. Inhaling for a count, and then exhaling for that same count. Once this becomes comfortable, maybe extending that by one count. Maybe that encourages a deeper breath, bringing the breath more into the belly. filling up the middle chest, not just the upper. Now letting go of that focus, particularly on your breath. You're going to begin just scanning the body, noticing each part, not judging or trying to force it to be something, but just noticing. Starting with the toes. And the feet, bringing your awareness to the soles of the feet and the tops of the feet. Noticing your calves and your shins, how they're feeling today. The front of your thighs, the back of your thighs. Noticing the hips, lingering just a bit longer here. We're going to focus especially on the hips in our practice. So just taking note of how they feel here at the beginning of this practice. Do you notice tension or gripping? Shifting your awareness now to your belly, your low back. Chest and your upper back. Shoulders. Your arms. Your hands. Bringing awareness to your neck, how it feels. And your face. Noticing any tension that you might carry in between your eyebrows or your forehead. Noticing now your entire body. Taking a moment to give thanks. Taking the time to become, or to be on this mat together. And if your eyes were closed, just gently bringing them open now. Maybe giving the shoulders a little roll. And then we'll just begin introducing a little bit more movement by bringing the hands down by the side, palms up. We'll inhale up, palms meet, and then turn out as you exhale, palms down. Good, palms up, inhale up, and exhale, palms down. One more time. Inhale, palms up, and exhale, palms down. Good. Bringing your hands to your knees now. We're going to inhale up nice and tall just to make sure our spine is good and straight. And then hinging forward, letting your pelvis kind of tip you forward, beginning to wake up the hips. This may not be a big movement for you yet. I know it's not for me. And we don't want to force it to be a big movement. We're going to start doing some circles. So inhaling as you move back, exhaling coming forward. These may feel a little stiff at first, so just be gentle as you move with your breath, allowing the breath to guide the movement. Inhaling back and exhaling forward. This time when you come forward, switch directions. Inhaling back and exhaling forward. And one last time. And we'll into the front. Come back up and then switch out the legs. So bring the opposite leg in front. I have a tendency to keep to always cross one foot in front. So just to make sure we get a little bit of balance, let's inhale ourselves up and then exhale, just hinge forward and notice how this feels different on this side. As we move through this practice, you may be aware already, but we tend to carry a lot of emotion in our hips. And so as we move through stretches and movements, sometimes those emotions can come out unexpectedly. So just don't be alarmed if that happens. I wanted to make you aware of that. And if you need to pause the video and then come back to it, by all means do. Just again, notice those and allow them to come if they do. So let's bring the knees out in front and just kind of let them knock inward a little bit. We had our legs out for a while. Nice. And then bring the feet around. We're going to come into a tabletop, so if you need to move your prop out of the way. Bringing hands and knees on the floor, we're going to stack shoulders over wrists and hips over knees. Moving into some cat and cow. So we're going to inhale the chest forward and the tailbone up for cow, and then exhale, rounding the spine for cat. Inhaling forward, cow. Exhaling up for cat. Focusing especially on the movement of the pelvis. Like I said, we're going to focus on hips today. So noticing especially how that feels. Not just in the back and front of your hips, but the sides. Finding stillness. Let's bring the hips all the way over to the left and our gaze over to the right. And then shift. Hips to the right, gaze to the left. And then just move through with your breath a few times. Exhaling hips over. Inhaling through center. And exhaling to the other side. I know I feel cracks and creaks in my spine as I do that. Those are good ones, but if you feel bad ones, by all means, lessen the movement. All right, let's just kind of circle the hips a little bit. And then we're going to sink the hips back to the heels just for a short child's pose, just to kind of give our bodies a little bit of reset. Knowing that this is a pose you can always come back to whenever you need a little bit of a break. If your hips don't come all the way to your heels, not a big deal. Everyone's body is different. You can always rest up on the forearms. You can bring fists in front of you to rest your forehead on, or grab that towel. Whatever, this is meant to be a comfortable pose, so just finding a way to get comfortable in this. It's kind of your home base pose. Then we're going to inhale up, setting ourselves, checking our alignment to set ourselves up into tabletop again. We're going to inhale the left arm up, and then thread it underneath the armpit of the right arm, coming onto the shoulder and kind of the side of the head. I like to extend my arm, that right arm out. If it feels good for you to wrap that right arm around your back, certainly you can do that. Just finding a nice stretch in the back, a gentle opening. Breathing here. And then planting that right hand again, we'll press ourselves up, reach up with that left hand, and then bring it back down to the mat. Switching to the other side. So we'll inhale the right arm up this time. Exhale, thread it through under the left armpit, coming down onto that shoulder, and then either extending that arm or you can wrap it around your back, whatever feels good. And then planting that left hand again, we'll reach the right arm up and plant it alongside the left. Just kind of shifting the hips left and right, maybe make some circles. That always feels a little good after that. And then when you're ready, we're going to step the left foot forward in between the hands. You may need to shift that right knee back a little bit, but we want to keep the left knee stacked over the ankle so that it's not coming out over the toes and putting pressure on the knee. You can stay here in this low lunge. We're aiming to get a nice stretch in the front of that back leg. You might also feel this in the hip of that front leg as well. If you feel like you have space and want to bring the hands up to that front knee, you can certainly do that. If you find that that puts too much pressure on your back, just keep the hands down. You can get the same stretch. It's really potato. Good, and if your hands were up, let's plant them. And then we're going to sink the hips back, moving that front leg toward straight. And it's not important whether it gets absolutely straight or not. We're going to flex that front foot and then rotate it from the hip, left and right. Just kind of noticing where you feel that stretch. Good, coming back forward again. Step that left knee back. And then we're going to bring the right leg forward. Again, making sure that the right knee stays over the ankle. If you want to bring the hands up, you can certainly do that. And then planting the hands again, walking the hands back to let the hips come back over the back leg, letting that front knee come towards straight. Want to not have it hyperextended. Flex that front foot and then just move it left and right. The movement initiates from the hip. And then coming back forward, back to our tabletop. Continuing to warm up that hip, extending the back or the left leg back behind you, pressing through that back heel, get a little calf stretch. And then we're going to bend the left leg and then make some big circles with it. And go the opposite direction. And then lift and hold for a moment. If you want to add a little balance challenge and extend the right arm, you can do that. A little bit of strength and heat building here. And then release the knee and the hand. Circle the hips a little bit. Switch sides, coming into bringing the right foot behind you, pressing out through that right heel. Apparently I'm getting my body parts confused. And then we'll bend that knee, make some big circles. maybe 2 or 3 in one direction, and then switch directions. And then we'll keep that leg lifted, foot pointed up toward the ceiling. Belly button drawing back toward the spine to give us a strong core. If you want to add that balance, extend the left arm. Keeping your gaze on the mat in front of you so that you're not putting pressure on the neck. And releasing hand and knee. Let's sink the hips back for a short child's pose. Finding your breath again. And coming up, we'll tuck the toes, press the hips up and back, coming into our first down dog of this class. Maybe pedaling the feet out if that feels good. Just finding a little bit of movement. Coming up onto the toes and then sinking the heels back. Let's bend the knees. Extend the left leg up toward the ceiling. And again, we'll make some of those same big hip circles that we did just a second ago. And extending that leg again. Let's step it through, coming in, bringing the foot up toward the hands, the left foot. I'm going to set up for warrior one. So you need to bring that back foot in a little bit. We want both toes mostly pointed toward the front. Back toes are kind of angled toward that front corner of the mat. Front knee has a nice bend in it. Inhaling ourselves up. Squaring hips and shoulders to the front. You might need to adjust your stance a little bit if you want to widen it or narrow it. If this feels unsteady, you can also bring your feet a little wider on the mat. That gives you more stability. Bringing the arms up overhead. This is a strong opener for that back hip especially. And particularly as we try to not let the ribs flare out, but kind of keep them nice and tucked, that gives us a better stretch on that front hip. I'm going to release the hands down. You can either interlace the fingers like that, or if that's not a comfortable pose, you can grab hold of opposite wrists or elbows. What we're aiming for is opening through the front of the chest. Inhaling up tall. We're going to exhale and hinge forward, coming into humble warrior. Maybe allowing the hands to rise up behind you. And then releasing the hands down to the mat. We're going to lower that back knee, scooch it back, and we're going to come into that low lunge again. This time we're going to bring the left hand inside the left foot, walk it out toward the corner of the mat, allowing yourself to kind of settle in here. You can either stay up on your hands. If you have more room and would like to come down on your forearms, by all means do that. And if you'd like to open that left hip a little bit more, you can bring the left hand to the inside of the left thigh and encourage that knee to kind of open to the side. Maybe the sole of the foot peels up off the mat. This is a very gentle movement, not putting any pressure on that knee. And bringing that back up. Planting both hands again, tuck the knee or tuck the toes of that back foot, lifting up. Left leg rises and then plants. And from here, you can either stay in this down dog. If you'd like to move through a vinyasa, you can do so by inhaling forward to plank or drop the knees for a kneeling plank. Exhale down for chaturanga, letting the elbows graze the ribs. And then inhaling up for a baby cobra. Tucking the toes, maybe moving through tabletop to come back into our down dog. Taking a breath here, and then bending the knees, inhaling the right leg up, toes toward the ceiling, making some big circles with the hip here in both directions. And then straightening that leg, we'll bring it through toward the hands. Again, set that back foot up for warrior one. If you need to narrow your stance or widen it on the mat. Inhaling ourselves up, keeping a nice bend in that front knee, squaring shoulders and hips to the front. Arms can come up overhead. If this doesn't feel comfortable for your shoulders, you can always bring your hands into prayer hands as well. Maybe noticing if this side feels a little different. And then we'll release the arms. Again, finding that opening through the chest that works it for you, either interlacing the hands or grabbing wrists or elbows. Inhaling ourselves up tall, and we're going to exhale, hinging forward, bringing the torso over that front knee. Maybe the arms rise up behind you for humble warrior. Releasing the hands now. Pivoting on that back knee, allowing it to come down to the mat. Maybe scooching it back as needed to make sure that front knee doesn't come out over the front ankle. And then bringing the right hand inside that right foot, walking it over to the corner or to the edge of the mat. You can stay here or come down on forearms. Maybe you bring a hand to the inside of that right thigh and just gently open that knee over toward the side, allowing the sole of the foot to peel up off the mat. Again, just being very gentle, move very slowly. You don't want any pain. And then bringing that right hand back down. Tucking the toes of the back leg. Sweep the right leg up into the air. Coming back and settling into our down dog. And again, you can either stay here if you'd like to move through a vinyasa, inhaling forward to plank, or that kneeling plank we did before. Exhaling down for chaturanga, or kneeling chaturanga. And then inhaling up for cobra or up dog. Exhaling the hips back, down dog. Good, and then let's bend the knees. Inhale the left leg up again. We're going to bend that leg, open the hip up toward the ceiling. Squaring the hips again, bringing the left leg to the front. Setting up for warrior two this time. So turning that back foot so that the back edge of the foot is parallel to the short end of the mat, or toes slightly turned up. Inhaling all the way up. Checking to see that the heel is more or less in line with the front heel, in line with the back arch. Squaring shoulders and hips to the side. We're going to bring the arms out to our strong warrior two arms. As we encourage that front knee not to drift inward, but to press out toward the pinky toe of that front foot, that helps this to be not just a strength building pose, but also opening the hip. One more breath. And straightening that front leg, we're going to turn both toes toward the long side of the mat, and then heels in, toes pointing out, so making kind of a V. Inhaling arms up. We're going to bend arms and legs, coming into goddess. And again, this is another one that is a good strength builder, but also helps encourage the hips to open as we invite the knees to not drift in. I keep inviting my knees and they keep declining me on that invitation, but you know, I keep working. I'm such a dork. If you like movement, you can feel free to inhale the arms and legs straight for 5-pointed star. Come back. I'm going to continue to hold this for another couple of breaths. But if you like movement, by all means do that. And now we're all going to inhale arms and legs straight, turning the left toes so that the outside of the left foot is parallel to the short side of the mat. We're going to turn the front toes, the right toes, straight out. And again, we want that heel to arch alignment here, bending deeply into that front leg, the right leg. And again, inviting that knee to move out. Strong warrior arms, shoulders and hips squared to the side. Keeping your gaze out over those right fingertips. Core draws back toward the spine, so you're nice, strong inside, nice, strong middle. One more breath. And straightening that right leg, turning both toes toward the long side of the mat again. This time we want to keep the feet facing to the front, to the long end of the mat. Inhaling the arms up, and as you exhale, hinging forward from the hips, coming down into a standing straddle split. You might need to adjust your stance. Maybe you walk your feet just gently out a little bit, or maybe you walk them in a little bit. Letting the head hang heavy, crown reaching toward the floor. And we're going to gently walk the hands over toward that right ankle, maybe taking hold of the outside of the right ankle with the left hand. You might feel this on the inside of the opposite leg. You might feel it in the hamstring of that right leg. And releasing that, we'll walk our hands over to the other side. So right hand to the outside of the left ankle. And releasing that. We're going to pivot on those feet, turning to the front of the mat, stepping forward, coming into a forward fold. Allowing yourself to dangle here for a moment. And then drawing the belly button back toward the spine to give us a good strong core engagement. We'll inhale ourselves up tall. Exhale, hands to heart center. And move through one last vinyasa if you'd like before we move into our yin poses. We'll inhale up. Exhale, swan dive to a forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift, flat back. Exhale, plant the hands, step back for plank or kneeling plank. Exhale, down for chaturanga, elbows grazing ribs. Inhale up for cobra or up dog. Tuck the toes. Exhale, back down dog. And drop the knees. Sit back for a child's pose. Good, and coming up, just gotta shift my mat. We're going to move now into our yin poses. And again, these are poses that we'll hold for about 2 or 3 minutes apiece. These are ones where it's important to find your edge. So go to that point of challenge that's just on the edge of not comfortable, but not painful. Again, we don't want to go for pain in any of our yoga poses. So anytime that you feel really sharp or pain, tingling, burning, all of that, not good, and that's a good cue to back off and maybe not deepen the stretch quite as much. So what we'll start off with is a wide leg child's pose. So we're going to bring our knees about as wide as the mat, or really whatever's comfortable for you. Keeping the toes together, your feet might go, or your knees might go wider than the mat. This is really just a version of frog. It's called tadpole, which I love. So we're going to bring the hips back toward the heels. If they don't meet, if they don't come back that far, by all means, when you find your edge, that's where you rest. That's where you come to. You may be up on your forearms. We want to find a slight tilt in the pelvis so that, kind of like when we're doing cow, not quite that exaggerated, but enough of a tilt of the pelvis that we're feeling the stretch in the hips. Maybe you come all the way down and can extend the arms. Maybe your forehead rests on the mat. Maybe you grab that towel and rest your forehead on that. Just finding a place that feels like a challenge, feels like where your edge is. And we'll hold here. Bringing your awareness to your breath. Mind has a tendency to wander, maybe convince us that we need to move. Let's see if you can sit with that. Get the fidgets. See if you can bring stillness to your mind and body by drawing your attention back to your breath. Very slowly beginning to wiggle fingers, starting to press up, walking the hands back toward your body or toward your knees. And we'll gently pick up the knees, walk them back together. Come into tabletop and just shift the hips from left to right. Just a little bit of a counter. Staying up on the knees, we're going to do a short camel pose. We're not going to hold this quite as long because this is a pretty challenging pose for most people. If this is a pose you're very comfortable with, feel free to pause the video and hold it longer if you'd like. But we're going to start here on our knees and bring the palms of the hands to the low back, kind of just right at hip height. Making sure that the elbows are kind of reaching toward one another in the back to give you a little bit of support. Inhale up, and as you exhale, shifting the hips very slightly forward. They're not really coming out over the knees, they're just staying stacked over the knees. Opening the chest up toward the ceiling. And again, if this is a pose you're very comfortable with and you'd like to come into the deeper pose, by all means reach for the heels, the mat. But this is a good chest opener and a good counterbalance for some of the forward bending that we do in life. And let's come back up. Plant the hands. Sink the hips back for a short child's pose. And we'll come back up, bring the feet off to one side. To come and sit on those sit bones again. And our next pose is going to be fire log, which is quite a strong hip opener. If you'd like to sit on that towel again, if that helps to get your hips back in better alignment, by all means. This is one where if you've got a pillow or bolster or something, it might be helpful to have as well. So we're going to begin by bringing the left shin kind of parallel to the mat. So it's kind of, our knee is making a little bit of an angle here. And then we're going to flex the right foot. Keep that left foot flexed as well. Flex the right foot because we want to protect the knees. Bring the right foot on top of the left knee. And if you're starting to feel pain in the knee, it's a good indication that a modification is going to be better. So just come into that easy pose that we did at the beginning, and you're going to shift your torso forward like we did at the beginning. So that's a good modification if this fire log pose is one that you're going, really? Really? Are you serious? So like I said, it's a pretty intense hip opener. If you'll notice that my knee does not come anywhere near the floor or the other knee or the other foot. So again, having a pillow or a blanket of some sort to support that can be helpful here. We want to make sure we keep those feet flexed to protect the knees. And wherever you are, either sitting up nice and tall, or if you're in that easy pose and want to hinge forward over the hips, again, that's a very similar hip opener to what we're doing here in fire log. Holding here, focusing on your breath. Bringing your awareness back as it wanders. The mind has a tendency to tell us to get out of uncomfortable situations. You feel that impulse, as long as you're not feeling pain, you feel that impulse to move. Try to just sit with it. Notice if that hip begins to release a little bit. Your edge might change as you hold this. slowly and gently beginning to come out of this. We're in that easy pose, torso forward, bringing it back up very gently. And fire log leaning back to release that top leg. And just letting the knees kind of windshield wiper back and forth. And we'll switch sides. So bring that right foot down. Again, flexing both feet. Left ankle stacks on top of the right knee. I didn't say it before, but it kind of creates a little triangle as you look down. You might see a little triangle. It's kind of what we're aiming for. Or coming into that easy pose. You may find one side is different than the other. We tend to think of our bodies as being parallel, but they're really quite different one side to the other. Again, you may want to support that knee and just breathing here. It helps to close your eyes. Sometimes that's nice to draw your attention inward. Feelings or emotions come up. Just taking note of them. Trying not to judge them as good or bad. Just noticing them. Beginning to come out of this by shifting the torso up, back, to release the legs out in front. And just shaking them out a little bit here. If you want to do a forward fold, if that would feel good, do that. It's very gentle. And getting ready to move down to the mat. So moving that towel, if you had it, out of the way. Bringing the knees up, feet to the mat, and we'll gently lower ourselves down. Extending arms overhead and legs out long. Let's first just give a nice full body stretch. And then take hold of elbows or wrists. We're going to walk the feet over toward the right corner of the mat and shift the torso over that same direction. So we're creating kind of a C shape with our body, coming into my favoritely named pose of Bananasana. Just beginning to relax here. If you'd like a little bit deeper stretch in that IT band, the outside of the left thigh, you can cross the left foot over the right foot. And kind of intensify that, what you feel on that outside of the left leg. Just breathing here. gently beginning to release that, walking the feet back to the center, bringing the torso back in line. Let's draw the knees up and then into the chest. Maybe it would feel good to rock a little bit here. And then we'll extend the legs out long again. Bringing the arms overhead, if you can remember which way you were holding your elbows, maybe switching. Walking the feet now over to the left corner of the mat. Torso comes over in that same direction. Checking in with your body here to see if you would like to cross the right ankle on top of the left here. What you do on one side doesn't have to be what you do on the other. And just breathing here. Very gently beginning to bring the feet back toward the center of the mat. Torso comes back in line. Knees come up, and you can either do that knees to chest again, or if it might feel good to do a little happy baby, you can bring the soles of the feet up toward the ceiling, reach down on the inside of the knees, take hold of either ankles or calves, and grab the tops of the feet, wherever would feel good. And give you a little reset here as we prepare for our Shavasana. Whenever you're ready, just releasing the feet back down to the mat. Extending the legs out long. If you'd like to come into a supported fish, either before or for your Shavasana, you take that towel and put it sideways on the mat, so long edge of the towel parallel to the short edge of the mat. Place it about at the shoulder blade height. And allow yourself just to drape across it. You might want to play with it a little bit to see what placement feels okay. This might feel good. We spend a lot of time hunched forward. So sometimes just a little supported chest opener feels good. If it doesn't feel good, feel free to come on into Shavasana. If you'd like to stay here for a little bit, or even rest here for all of your Shavasana. Doing what feels good for your body. And we'll do that body scan again that we did at the beginning of our practice. This time starting at the crown of the head and noticing how that feels. Noticing that space between your eyebrows and your forehead. Bringing awareness to your cheeks and your jaw. Noticing your neck, your collarbone, shoulders. Bringing your awareness down your arms, into your hands. Noticing each finger. And bringing your attention to your chest, your upper back, lower back, your belly. Bring a little extra attention to your hips. Noticing especially if they feel different than they did at the beginning. Noticing your legs, your calves, shins, your feet, and each toe. Now letting your whole body relax down into the mat. Very slowly beginning to introduce some movement back to your body. Maybe gently moving your head left and right. Wiggling fingers, toes. drawing the knees up to roll over onto your side. Cradling your head and your upper arm. And taking a moment here. And then when you're ready, pressing that top hand into the floor, using it to draw yourself back up. Coming into a comfortable seated position again as we close this practice. And I want to share this with you from Leslie Weatherhead. Sometimes the most difficult thing is to sit still, and yet we know, especially in this time of pandemic, that is one of the best things that we can do is to stay put, right? And that's what we've been doing for the last many weeks. But this is from Leslie Weatherhead. Help me now to be quiet, relaxed, and receptive, accepting the thought of healing grace at work deep within my nature. I'm so thankful for this opportunity to practice with you all today. I hope you're staying safe and healthy, and I wish you all the very best. I look forward to when we can see each other in person again. So let's inhale the arms up, palms together, exhale to the heart center. Namaste, friends.